Graph the function shown on your own paper, then choose the correct graph. This is a rational function, and the first thing we need to do is figure out the asymptotes. So looking at the equation here, the first thing we want to know is what is the vertical asymptote, and that's where the values of the function are undefined. That's where the denominator here equals 0. So you set x plus 1 equals 0, then subtract 1 to get x equals negative 1. That's the vertical asymptote, and you cannot have an input of negative 1 in the function. So I'm going to put a dashed line on the graph for x equals negative 1. Now for the vertical asymptote, when a rational function is in this form, the vertical asymptote is this 2 out here. It's y equals 2. So put a dashed line there. And what that means is when the values for x get really, really large or really, really negative, the value of the function will approach 2 for outputs. So the asymptotes, now what we need to do is plot a couple of points and figure out where this graph's going to go. And we want a couple points on each side of the vertical asymptote. So I'm going to do a little t-chart here. And I'm going to choose negative 3 for x, negative 2, and then I'm going to choose 0 and then 1. So I have two values on each side of the vertical asymptote. So input a negative 3, y equals negative 1 over negative 3 plus 1 and then plus 2. So this equals, let's see, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2, so negative 1 over negative 2 plus 2. And that's going to make 2.5, or 5 halves. So let me go ahead and plot that. Negative 3 and then up 2.5. Input a negative 2. We have negative 1 over negative 2 plus 1. That's the same thing as negative 1 divided by negative 1 and then plus 2. So it would be 1 plus 2, which is 3. So negative 2 and then 3. It's right there. Input is 0. That's easy. Negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1. So then you have negative 1 plus 2, which is 1. So I have 0, 1. Input a 1. Negative 1 over 1 plus 1, which is 2. That'll be negative 1 over 2 and then plus 2. So that's going to be 3 halves, or 1.5. So 1 and then 1.5 right there. 3 halves. Okay, now the final step here for the graphing is we want to follow the asymptotes with the graph. So I'm going to draw a curve up this way. It's going to flatten out to follow the asymptotes. Okay, now these rational functions always follow the asymptotes. That's why it's really important to get accurate asymptotes. Okay, there's the graph of the function. Y equals negative 1 over x plus 1 and then plus 2.